Welcome back to the Cash Flow Project. If you're listening or watching us for the first time, welcome. Our goal here is at the Cash Flow Project is to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs. We sit down and talk to local businesses in the northern Colorado area to get insight on how they worked from the ground up and try to educate ourselves how we too can be entrepreneurs. Today we have the opportunity to speak with entrepreneur and owner of 477 Distilling and Distilling Oak and Maple and Waffle Company and co-owner of the Greeley Hatchet House, Matt Estrin. Yay!
Yay!
Matt, thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
Could you begin by telling us a bit about yourself?
All right. Well, where do you want me to start? I was born in 1982 in a small town of Westminster, California. I won't go that far back, but I don't know where you want to start, but I've, the most important thing to me is my family. I've been married for 20 years, coming up here in about a month and a half, and I've got two incredible daughters. My oldest daughter is Samantha. She's 15, and my youngest daughter is Riley, and she turns 12 here in a couple weeks. And we've been living here in Greeley. We moved here when my oldest daughter was 2 weeks old, so I always remember how long I've lived in Greeley because of how old my daughter is. So we've been here for 15 years, which has been great. Previously, we did a small stint in Denver, Colorado. I did about a 5-year stint where I met my wife in Jacksonville, Florida, and I grew up in Southern California. I'm a big Southern California guy. My family still lives there, so I still root for all the California teams. I would never move back there, but I'm still a proud Californian. I've got an interesting story in that before the first business I opened was 477 Distilling. Originally, the name was Tower 56 Distilling. We opened in June of 2018, so coming up on 7 years this year. And before I did that, believe it or not, I was a pastor for 15 years.
Yep.
I was a music pastor. So a lot of jokes you can make there from one spirit to another spirit. But it's an interesting jump, but I still feel like I tell people all the time, I think being in ministry the way I was for the time that I was and doing what I did really prepared me well to be an entrepreneur. And so I don't know if that's a background you want, but that's what I got for you.
That's a perfect segue to where we're going now. Can you walk us through a very specific timeline of which venture you started and which came to be?
Sure. Very specific timeline.
Yes.
All right. So I started the distillery first. I mentioned that we opened in June of 2018. That project took about a year and a half from concept to opening. So in October of 2016, I had a grandfather that passed away earlier that year, left my wife and I with a small little inheritance. Not enough to start a business, but enough to allow us to dream a little bit. And we both kind of knew we were ready for something different and new and exciting. And so I had been distilling in my garage for a while and super illegal. Don't tell the feds. And so, shh. This isn't on video, is it? Yeah. And so the first thing I did is I ended up going to a school. Believe it or not, it's called Moonshine University. It's a real school. I wish they would change their name because everybody thinks it's fake. But they do these week-long intensive courses where they teach you everything in the distilling industry, from how to make it to how to start the business to the financial piece of it. And so that was kind of like my entrance into seeing if this is something that we could actually try. And so from that moment until we opened, so that was October of 2016. We opened in June of 2018. So about a year and a half from concept to opening, and opened the doors June 22nd, 2018. And about 6 months into that adventure, one of the things I realized is, so I got into the distilling business because I loved distilling. I enjoyed being in my garage and making the product and distilling everything and sitting there all day while the still's producing product. And so I got into it thinking that I wanted to be the distiller. I wanted to be the guy that was putting the grains in the mash tun and was doing all the work and was producing everything. And about 6 months in, one of the things I realized is, as much as I love distilling, I love business even more. And I just found myself really excited about kind of the entrepreneurial adventure of creating something, opening something, having a product to give to people. And so about 6 months into that process, I realized I'm going to probably open a lot more businesses. And I tell people, for me, opening businesses like drugs. I've never done drugs, but I assume it's like drugs in that it's just really addictive. Like, you always are thinking about the next thing that you can do. And so pretty quick after 477 opened, I was down with some friends at an axe throwing venue down in Denver for a bachelor party, and we were having a blast. But somewhere in the middle of it, my entrepreneurial brain kicked in, and I started realizing what a genius business it was. That it was low overhead. You don't have a whole lot of staff. I was calculating how much my group had paid to be there, realizing how much money they were making off us, and we were buying drinks. And I was like, man, this is brilliant. Coupled with the fact that, 477's in downtown Greeley. I love downtown Greeley. I want to see downtown Greeley succeed. So I thought, man, this is something that downtown Greeley really needs. And so I embarked on that adventure next. That was probably a year from concept to opening, and I was so busy with 477 that I decided to approach a good friend of mine at the time who kind of had a similar entrepreneurial bug, but also had some of the skill sets that I don't have. He's very handy. I'm not very handy. He can, he can do a lot of the construction building, and I'm pretty good with numbers and spreadsheets and, it's kind of the back end business side of things. So we decided that we were going to give it a go and start that business as well. Again, about a year from concept to opening there, we opened the Hatchet House, the Greeley Hatchet House, in November of 2020, which, if you can remember the calendar year, that was a horrible time to open a business. We were open for 1 week. And then we got shut down for 2 months because that was during the second round of shutdowns that happened from November 2020 until the end of January to 2021. We did realize about a week into the first shutdown that we kind of had a special pass. Bowling alleys were allowed to stay open, but it was under very specific guidelines where they bowling alleys had to it had to have reservations only, groups of 10 or less, and only one group in at a time. And so we realized that we could do the same thing. So we opened back up about a week after the shutdown, again, for groups of 10 or less, reservation only, and only one group in at a time, which was a blessing in disguise. It allowed us to develop our processes, to figure out how we do what we do the best. And so it was looking back on it, it was kind of a nice experience to have outside of not making the money that you wish you could make. So in that, there's a couple like random businesses in there. In that, we my business partner and I from the Hatchet House, we ended up opening a bar in Fort Morgan. They recruited us, and we opened a Hatchet House bar combo. That was probably a year and I don't know the timeline there, somewhere in 2021. We've shut down the Hatchet House out there, but the bar is still running. It's called After Hours Cocktail Bar in Fort Morgan. There's an After Hours Cocktail Bar in Greeley, which my business partner owns, but together we own the one in Fort Morgan. And then I started working on the project that I just recently opened, which was my Loveland. I wanted to open a second tasting room. I felt like I had a good formula with the 477 tasting room. I wanted it to be in a downtown, high traffic, foot traffic area. Started working with a developer in downtown Loveland, Colorado, and we signed a lease on a space and started working on that project about 2 years ago. And it was a long, long project. Well, it was taking a very long time for a lot of different reasons, and it was moving very slow. But in the midst of that, one of the things that we had developed was we knew that in this space in Loveland, we wanted to add food to our business plan, which we don't have food in our Greeley 477 spot. And so we developed a whole food concept, which is gourmet waffles. And that was born out of a few things. One is really trying to come up with a food concept that didn't require a grease trap or a hood, because those are two very expensive things to take on. And so what are some cool food concepts that you could do that wouldn't require a grease trap or hood? And one morning I was in my kitchen. I mentioned, my kids are a big part of my life. And my youngest daughter, Riley, literally has a waffle every morning with Nutella and strawberries every single day. She has for years. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching her do this. I thought, yeah, waffles would be kind of cool. And from Southern California, there's actually a couple of famous waffle restaurants in Southern California. And so I kind of embarked on this idea to develop this waffle concept. So we built the concept of oak and maple for our Loveland facility, but Loveland was taking so long that I had a friend of mine, the commercial realtor, who reached out to me and said, "Hey, this space opened up in downtown Greeley. It's right across from the campus. It's funny. His question was, it's got a built-out kitchen, but it doesn't have a hood and it doesn't have a grease trap. Do you have any concepts that could work in a space like that?" It's like, well, I kind of do. So I know I'm talking a lot, but
no, it's okay.
So we opened Oak and Maple in August of 2024, and then literally a few months later we opened. So I signed the lease for the space in Greeley. The day I signed the lease, my developer in Loveland called me and said, "Hey, everything's passed. We're going. Construction starts tomorrow. We're going to get you open by September," is what he told me. I'm like, "You got to be kidding me," because I'm planning on opening this one in August. I've turned around and opened another one in September. Luckily, that took a little bit longer. Construction, anybody that's listening, for an entrepreneur, construction always takes twice as long and costs twice as much. So I knew that the timeline he gave me was not the real timeline. So we opened Oak and Maple, Greeley, in August of 2024, and then we opened 477 Distilling and Oak and Maple, Loveland, 2 businesses, 1 building, December 21st, 2024. So about 3.5 months, 4 months later.
That is so impressive, though. How did you maintain all the time?
I don't know if I'm maintaining, man. I feel like I'm sleepwalking most of the time.
Yeah.
No, the truth is I've got an incredible staff at all of my places. Grace, who's in the room, actually works for me at Oak and Maple, and she's a great representation of the quality employees that we have across all my businesses. And I've got some really great managers across all the businesses as well. And so it was a lot of work, and my family was in it with me. You know, my kids were at all the openings. My wife was at all the openings. They, if you look back at my Facebook page and Instagram page, you'll see tons of pictures of our whole family in there painting Oak and Maple and hanging the wood boards. And, it was a family experience for sure, but a lot of work, but we've got a great staff, which made it doable.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for explaining all your businesses.
Sorry. Yeah. Long process. I know.
We get it. But going back to 477 Distilling, there are 2 locations, and you distribute to 5 different states. What states are they, and how are you navigating? And can you explain to us how navigating setting up the distribution process works?
Oh man, this podcast isn't long enough for that question. So we distribute all of Colorado. And then we've got Kansas and Missouri, Wisconsin and Nebraska are the states that we're in currently. The alcohol industry is wild in that every state has different rules and legalities for distribution. And so in Colorado, we actually work with 4 distributors in the state to cover the whole state. So we have one that covers northern Colorado and the western slope. We have one that covers Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs, most of the mountain territory for us. And then we have one that covers the Four Corners area, and then one that covers Steamboat Springs area. And so we've got different groups of distributors that are all friends but are all separate businesses. So that's in the state of Colorado. Missouri is a brutal state to get into. We had a really hard time with the paperwork there. It took us about 6 months to get the paperwork to go through. And then we have one distributor that covers Missouri and Kansas. In fact, the distribution warehouse sits on the border of Missouri and Kansas. And you're talking about, one distributor, 2 states. One state took us about 6 months to get the paperwork in, and is just so brutal. And Kansas is like, yeah, do whatever you want. Yeah, send stuff in. We'll be cool with it. Yeah. It was like so easy to get stuff in there. Wisconsin was a pretty easy state to get stuff into as well, but they require a certain amount of insurance coverage. Nebraska is another one that isn't too hard to get into, but their fees are really high. So we have to pay a yearly fee that's kind of excessive in my opinion, but it's just kind of goofy. Every state's different. Every state has a different process. Every distributor has a different way of doing it. And so you just kind of have to be flexible and ready to do whatever they ask you to do. Yeah.
Oh, okay. How do you market your distillery apart from other distilleries in surrounding areas?
We talking about in Colorado? We talking about out of state?
Probably in Colorado. We'll do that.
Yeah. So we've honed in on a few things. One thing for our distillery is we learned early on that we love cocktails. We are we have 3 core values that are, my whole staff knows very well, and we talk about it in every staff meeting. One of our core values is we love making cocktails better. And so we really feel like, we produce a lot of the same spirits that other people produce. We have bourbon, we've got vodka, we've got gin, which you can find at almost every distillery. But we also have this really wide array of flavored products that are our best-selling products. And we developed those because we love cocktails and we want to make cocktails really cool and different and exciting and fun. And so when we walk into a bar, if we're trying to sell our products into a bar, we can talk about how, man, you can put this on your shelf. You can make this, and this cocktail way better. The price is really good. It can really elevate the cocktail game. So we've really honed in on the cocktail side of what we do. even to the point where if you go to our website, we offer free cocktail bartending classes on
Yeah,
our
I know.
website.
We saw that. We were really
And so
impressed.
that's one of our big marketing pieces, is that we want people to use our spirits to make really cool stuff at home or make really cool stuff in a bar. So if you walk into a liquor store and you see our bottles sitting on the shelf, you're going to see a neck tag on the bottle that has a QR code, and it says scan this QR code for free bartending classes. You scan the QR code, it's got tons of recipes for all of our spirits that we make, and it has these professionally done bartending classes that we walk people through the very basics of like how to shake a cocktail to a little bit more, like citrus and syrups and the things like that. And so we've really tried to put ourselves in a different lane in that we make our spirits with cocktails in mind, and our goal is to make cocktails better.
Mm-hmm. No, I really like that idea with the QR code, and people can just try your kinds of cocktails however they want.
Yeah.
How many do you have? How many of your own bottles do you have?
So we distribute 11 products. So we have, I think it's 11. Let's count: bourbon, rye, vodka, 2 gins. Now we're at 5. We've got 3 flavored whiskeys: orange, cinnamon, and peanut. We're way over 11, I think. And then we have 4 liqueurs. So we have lemon, almond, chai, and coffee. So that's 12.
Wow.
Yep. 12 spirits. And then we, in our tasting rooms, we release 1 limited release a month all year long. So we have 12 additional that we'll put out this year that are a one-time. We're doing it once, and you can only get it once, and once it's gone, it's gone. Some of those we repeat every year. Some we do it once and we'll never do it again. So
like the one the Lucky Charm one you have going on right now?
So that's our drink of the month. That's a cocktail.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do so on the cocktail side, we're pretty like creative, and we do a lot. On the cocktail side, we change our menu 4 times a year. So we have 4 menu changes with the 4 seasons.
Right.
And then every month we have a specialty drink of the month, which is something that's geared towards that month. So right now we're in March. St. Patrick's Day is Monday, I think. And so we, Lucky Charms, it's a St. Patrick's style cocktail. It's green. It's got Lucky Charms marshmallows on it, which is really fun. The other cool thing about the drink of the month, though, since you brought that up, is we also use it as a way to give back. And so every month, our drink of the month, 20% of the proceeds of it go towards a local charity.
Wow.
And so we keep track of that and give to a local charity.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a business do that before.
Sure.
So that's really cool that you guys do that.
Yeah.
It's very unique. I love it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so for Oak and Maple, what inspired the name and what inspired the recipes?
It's very delicious, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. The name, man, we worked really hard on the name and all over the place, but essentially at our flagship location, which is in Greeley, it is a waffle bar by day and a whiskey bar by night. So I am a huge bourbon whiskey fan. At home, I probably have over 400 bottles of bourbon, different bourbons. I like to collect bourbons. And so part of my goal was to bring that love of whiskey to Greeley. We've got a really good whiskey collection, probably over 70-ish. I don't know, Grace sees them every day.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot on the shelf. And I've curated what I think is a really good selection for somebody that is like a whiskey fan like me would walk in and go, oh my gosh, this place is legit. It's not, Jack Daniels and that's all they got on the shelf. And so there was a whiskey piece to it, and then there was a waffle piece to it. So I was like, all right, what are 2 words that describe, the business? And it was like, well, oak, with whiskey, oak barrels, and I like that. And then maple with the syrup. And so it just kind of clicked, oak and maple. I'll be honest, man, everybody calls it something different, which I'm fine with. Like people call it oak and waffles. People call it, everybody all the time, oh, whiskey and waffles. Isn't that the name of your business? Like, no, it's called oak and maple, but that's okay. And so I've learned early on, I don't care what people call my business as long as they're going to spend money at it. So, but that's where we came up with oak and maple. Yep.
Oh, I like
and honestly, people get really excited by the logo too. I created the logo in Canva.
It's very simple, but it gets the point across, and it's very captivating.
Yep.
I would say.
Yeah.
Classy, simple. I think businesses sometimes get too complicated with their logos, and if you look at it, you're like, I don't even know what that even is. So
Right.
I wanted to keep it simple, classy, clean. Showed about 10 people, and they all said that's awesome. So we went with it.
Yeah. So what is your motive to keep your business running, and how are you going to make changes to keep it that way? considering that before your business started, there were 2 prior smoothie shops.
Oh, talk about in the space?
Yeah.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
my motive to keep the business running is feeding my kids and living, people talk about spaces being, that space is cursed. No business has ever survived there. And I just don't believe that type of stuff. I just think it's got to be the right business in the right spot and do the right things. And I don't know the history of the smoothie shops. And I know that it was the same owner, but it was they changed the business concept midway through.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of what may have happened to it. And so but I don't try not to spend too much time dwelling on that as much as just focusing on my business and what we do. There's a couple things that were really important to me with this business. One is I wanted to create a business where I could have where we could operate with one staff person during slower hours. And in a lot of restaurants, you're stuck with 2 or 3 or even 4 staff people. You got a cook, an assistant cook, you got a host, you got a waiter, maybe a bartender. So one of the thoughts was, can we do everything in a way that we could operate with one staff member to keep our overhead with our employee costs really low? And so that was one of the ideas that we had put forth. And hey, we're just going to try to keep costs really low. I come from an alcohol background. I've been doing alcohol for several years, and I know alcohol really well. I know how to sell alcohol really well. The other thing I know is that when people eat, they drink more. And so part of the goal was to create a concept that would mesh the alcohol world with the food world of, hey, I'm going to get a cocktail and I'm going to get this waffle, but I'm still eating this waffle, so I'm going to go get another cocktail. And so the goal was to try to really raise ticket prices, to get ticket prices up as well. And then the one area that we still haven't cracked, and we're working on it, but is to make it engaging for college students. We're right across from the Montfort School of Business, really close to the music school, really close to the arts school. And so creating a space that is comfortable for people to come in and sit and study. We added an espresso machine, which wasn't in our original plan, but we added it for the fact of if you got waffles, we should probably have, espresso style drinks, a chance for people to come in. And then we offer what I think is the best student deal in town. And we were just talking about another business that offers a really good deal as well, but for $8 even. So after tax at $8, you get 2 waffles, your choice of topping and syrups, and then espresso drink. Which, gosh, you get a Dutch Brothers, it's $6 alone for an espresso drink. So you're getting food and espresso, and you can come in and hang out. So that's kind of the plan for how we survive. And so far, so good. The business is doing well. I mean, it depends. We do really, really well on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Those are our bread and butter times for sure. Weekday mornings are hit or miss. We can be absolutely slammed, or we can have nobody. Still trying to figure that piece out a little bit. Evenings is still a struggle for us. If I'm being honest, really, I was hoping that the whiskey side would really take off and people would realize, man, best whiskey collection in town, really good cocktails, and you can get some cool food. That piece still hasn't kicked yet, and we're working through that a little bit. Some other things that are on my radar that we haven't gotten into, but I wanted to really establish our business first, is the next big piece for us will be the takeout sales, like Grubhub, stuff like that, where people can order and get it delivered to them. But we haven't gotten there yet.
I think a lot of college students will take that as a benefit, because I don't think anyone wants to walk across campus to somewhere like really far away.
Which is crazy, because when I was in college, money was tight, and I wouldn't spend an extra $3 just not to walk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Get your steps in.
Got to get the steps in. Yeah.
Basically. Yeah, so we love to recognize the amazing ambience and staff that you have at Oak and Maple. How did you navigate choosing what style and culture you wanted to set up for this awesome dining experience?
Yeah. So the staff part has been interesting. We hired a big staff early on. We lost some people pretty quick, which is pretty normal. And now we've kind of stabilized. We've got a really good staff in there right now. One of the things a friend taught me early on, which I thought was really interesting. I have good friends that own some coffee shops, and when I was getting into the business, they were talking to me about hiring and how they hire. And one of the criteria that they go with, and I realize I'm doing this, we're on camera, but they said that they always hire people that talk with their hands. And they said that people that talk with their hands, they have the ability to multitask. They typically have really good personalities, like being able to communicate with people and have a discussion with people. And so we've always looked for, as goofy as this sounds, people that talk with their hands. Like we want people that can engage in a conversation, that if you walk in, they can be friendly. They can, if you end up sitting at the bar, they can talk to you for an hour and not get uncomfortable. But also have the ability, like if you walk in, so we have kind of 3 areas. We've got the waffles, we've got espresso, we've got cocktails. If you walk in and you order 2 waffle dishes, 1 cocktail and 1 espresso, to be able to manage that in a timely manner and get all food out and get the drinks out. And so that's kind of, as goofy as it sounds, that's kind of the way that we've gone. I've actually stepped out of the hiring process now at Oak and Maple. We have an incredible manager who I just feel so fortunate to have. Her name is Alyssa. And so we did all the interviews and hiring early. And so she kind of got an idea of what I was looking for and how I hired. And now she does all the interviewing now. So she hired Grace. I wasn't even in the
shout out to Alyssa.
Yeah, shout out to Alyssa. I wasn't even in the interview with Grace, but she does a great job and she hires good people. And we've tried not to compromise. We've tried really hard not to compromise the need for a staff person with just hiring somebody.
Right.
And a lot of places do that. It's like, man, we're down a body and it's causing Alyssa or I to have to work a few extra shifts or a couple extra days. Let's just get someone in and get it done. Well, that can turn out to be a major disaster. So I think we've been really picky. If it's not the right person, it's not the right person, and we move on.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So side question, when you are talking to someone who is using their hands, do you look at their hands when they're talking, or do you just maintain eye contact?
I look at their face, yeah. But you can see when they're using their hands. You can see using their hands. And
they gesture properly. You can I'm right here. You can kind of see what they're doing.
And eye contact is important too. That's just somebody's looking down, their hands are, that stuff, if anybody's listening, if you're interviewing somewhere, like, you always engage, look in their face. The other thing too that's important to me in an interview, you didn't ask this question, but I'm just going to answer it for you anyway. I could talk for hours, by the way. The other thing that's important to me is for someone to ask questions to me too. I've always found that when somebody has done some research on a business and is curious about the business, that is really, really intriguing to me. The best interview that we had at Oak and Maple was a girl named Sierra, who Grace works with and knows Sierra very well.
Shout out Sierra.
And shout out Sierra. A great employee. But she interviewed so well. And one of the reasons why she interviewed so well is she was sincerely curious about the business. And so she asked great questions about us, which to me is always a really good sign of somebody that is going to come work for us. So
no, I think that's really good to know, because college students are listening to the podcast. And people are looking for internships and new jobs after they're graduating. So this is good to know.
It is good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Always
do your research, ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
Be curious.
Yeah. Not judgmental.
Not judgmental.
My man Ted Lasso said.
So we're actually going to move on to a mix of the Greeley Hatchet House and entrepreneurial questions, just because time is a little...
Yeah, sorry, I could talk forever.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So you were already talked about how you were inspired about the Greeley Hatchet House through your own experience. So how did that business idea come to be? From your own perspective, what were your own outcomes from it?
As I mentioned, I went down to Denver for a friend's bachelor party, went through a great experience at a axe throwing place, and decided that was something I wanted to bring to Greeley. But if you've listened to this podcast, one of my big things is keeping employee costs down. And one of the things that place did is they gave you one person per lane. So we had a coach at our lane the whole time. So they had 6 lanes. So at any time they could have 6 employees working, which it makes sense. You've got it pencils out in terms of the finances. If you've got a group that's at the lane and somebody working the lane, it should be able to pay for that person working the lane. But that being said, I just kind of felt like it was a gigantic waste of money. So one of my goals was to reduce the staff, to be able to operate with 1 or 2 staff members at all times during a really busy season. And we also felt like the other piece that I experienced when I was there is I felt like our time was too long. They gave us 2 hours to throw, which was great. But I'd say about an hour and a half in, all of our, we're not we're not spring chickens. We're not very young. And like all of our shoulders were getting tired and like parts of our body were starting to hurt. And it was just kind of one of those like, God, what are we supposed to do for the next 30 minutes? So we adjusted the times a little bit, just felt like we could make it a little bit more user-friendly, also cut some costs down from an employee standpoint. And the other piece that that they didn't have down there is, like, for me, I wanted to feel like it was an adult playground almost, you know, like when I was a kid, as a little boy, like I would throw ninja stars in my backyard and like all the sharp objects I would throw. And so part of it is I wanted it to feel like as a grown guy now, taking it back to my childhood. So we decided to expand beyond axes, and we got knives and ninja stars and throwing cards. And, you know, I'd walk into Shields and go into their knife section, and anything that was sharp and throwable, we would buy and have for people to use. So, so that was kind of our vision or our take on doing it differently than what I experienced down in Denver.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we have another question for you. Have you ever hit a bullseye at Hatchet House?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
It's not. Yeah, that's not hard to do.
Is it hard? Oh,
no,
It's not?
No.
Okay.
Go.
I was like, I'm not sure. It kind of looks hard to me, so we had to ask.
It's hard to figure out, but once you've got it dialed in, it's pretty easy. And that's part of what we've really worked hard with our staff to do, is our goal is for you to get good at it. Yeah. Like if someone comes to throw axes and they can't land an axe the entire time, they're probably never going to come back because it was a horrible experience for them. So our goal is as quick as we can to get the people that are throwing to get good at it as quick as they can, because we want them to have a good time. And if you've never been, there is nothing more satisfying than landing an axe in a wood board. Like the sound of it, even the feel of it, it's just like, it's a really great experience. And so, so no, it is not hard. I've hit plenty of bullseyes. Everybody hits bullseyes. They're pretty easy. Yeah.
Do you have alcoholic beverages over there?
Beer and wine.
Okay.
No hard spirits.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know, because I'm like, alcohol and axes?
Believe it or not, sometimes alcoholic beverage or two can help you with your axe throwing, loosen you up a little bit, make you a little more,
ease the
nerves,
Yeah.
maybe a little more flexible, or at least you think you're a little more flexible. Yeah.
You'll feel it the next morning.
We do limit, like we don't want anybody drunk.
Yeah.
And so if you come in drunk, you don't get to throw. If it seems like you're getting to that stage, we'll shut you down.
Yeah.
So we keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
What would you say is important to look for when choosing a business partner?
It's tough. Business partners are tough. And my business partner, Austin, and I, we've had a great relationship. I'm sure there have been plenty of times where I have made him mad, and there have been plenty of times where he's made me mad. But we've got a good understanding. I would say we complement each other really well. He is really good at the things that I am not good at, and I feel like I'm pretty good at the stuff that he I wouldn't say that he's not good at, but stuff that he probably doesn't want to do. And so we've got our own worlds that we live in. Quite honestly, we almost never see each other. We communicate via text a lot. And we've got a pretty good understanding of what to expect business wise. And it helps when you're making money and you're getting paid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The Hatchet House has been pretty successful. We've had a good run there. And so it's easier to be business partners when the business is successful, for sure.
Yeah, and you guys have the same mindset as to
Yeah.
what a business should look like.
And he's an entrepreneur too. They've got other businesses. He and his wife have other businesses that they own and run separate from me. And so we have that understanding too of like, we've got other stuff that we're doing. And so our lives don't revolve around the Hatchet House. They just had their first kid. He's quite a bit younger than me. They just had their first kid. I've got my two daughters are a little bit older. And so family's real important to us. Yeah. So we've got a lot of very similar values and perspectives when it comes to running that.
Yeah.
I would say this, just because they're your friend doesn't mean they're a good business partner, which I think is a big mistake that a lot of people make.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Yep.
Coming from a student who's studying marketing, how do you try and get college students to market for you and recruit people?
So social media is super important, and there's no better, in my opinion, there's no better marketing value than somebody posting on their personal page that they had an experience at your location. And so in all of my places, we talk about the value of a picture. So at 477, the cocktail, when it comes out, hopefully it looks incredible and it makes you want to pull out your phone and take a picture and post it on for me, my age, post it on Facebook or Instagram. For the kids these days, snap it or TikTok it or whatever they do. I don't know what all that stuff is.
Somehow.
My daughter's got Snapchat. I don't understand how it works, but it's important for us that like the value of, if if Grace comes into my place and she has a great experience and a great cocktail and she takes a picture of it and she posts awesome experience at 477, well, that now is marketing to all of her friends and contacts that look at her, which could be 1,000 people. And so if we can get, 20% of our customers to do that, that's insane marketing at scale. So, and we do it across all of our businesses. So like one of the things our coaches at the Hatchet House have been told is to always offer to take pictures of the groups. So when they're hey, you got a bullseye? Can I take a picture of it? Do you want your group picture? And so again, if the group is posting, had the best time at the Hatchet House on their personal pages, that's awesome. Yeah. And then same thing at Oak and Maple is the goal. And we have some on our staff that are better than others, but the goal is that when a plate comes out, it's picture worthy, that we see people that grab their phones.
It is. I'll literally bring out people's food and they pull it out.
They pull their phone. Yep.
They want to document. They say, "Oh, this looks so good."
Yep. And so that's the goal. If it can show up on a story or a snap or a TikTok reel, whatever you kids are doing these days.
No, yeah, I got to be your 1,000th follower on Instagram.
Oh, sweet.
She's very excited to. Yeah, you had us pose for a picture.
I posted you guys on my story.
No, fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun.
Which all your friends saw it.
Yes.
And I saw it. And if like that multiplies over time too. So like if you guys have a lot of friends that are the same mutual friends and you both are posting about it, two of my friends have said that. In our industries, any of our industries, people aren't going to come every day. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
The majority, our best customers at 477 come twice a month. That's what we've learned. And so what we want to be is we want to be top of mind in all my businesses. So if you're like, hey, what should we do this weekend? It would be fun to do something rather than just go to a movie. We should go axe throwing. I saw some friends that went axe throwing. So all the businesses, we want to be top of mind so that when you're ready to go out and eat or drink or do something active, that those will be where you go.
Yeah, and it's something new, creative.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. How have you managed balancing your personal life, like being there for your kids, and managing 4 businesses?
Well, you should ask my wife.
Bring her in.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Early on when I started, I said that that I would never let business get in the way of being dad. Mm-hmm. My most important job, without question, is being a dad to my 2 kids. And I'll never get the time back that I have with them. My daughter, Sam, is 15 and she's a freshman. And, she's, we're going to be talking college here in a year or 2. And though I don't see her as my kid that's going to go away to college, you never know. She may move out. And, but early on, I said when I started 477, I never want my businesses to get in the way of being dad. And so I've just made it a priority that I'm not going to miss this stuff. I'm not going to miss the ball games. I'm still going to coach my kids. I coached my youngest daughter's volleyball team last year. And I would rather shut down for a day and be at one of my kids' things than miss out on being dad just because I have a business. So far, I haven't had to shut down. But I'm unapologetic about it. It's, there's just times where I'm not going to be able to do certain things as a business owner because I'm going to be a dad. And so far it hasn't been an issue. And so I just think, if you prioritize being a dad, being a husband, prioritize your family time, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out how to make it work. But if you're one of those where it's like, I'm going to put my family aside for a time and they'll be okay for the next 2 or 3 years while I start this business, then you've already made that decision of like, well, if something comes up, they'll figure it out. I'm going to work my butt off,
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that's been it for me is it's important. Being a dad is important and it's my favorite job and it's the most important job. And so that's what I take seriously.
Yeah. I'm going to have you say one more question and then I will say the last question.
Okay.
They better be good.
I gotta pick. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you said you were a music pastor for
Yep.
17 years or 15, however
15
long
years,
you said.
yeah.
How has that played a role in your job as an entrepreneur and opening up these businesses and managing people? How has that changed you for the good?
Yeah. So a couple things I like to tell people. One is, working in churches, every week you're planning a new service, a new experience for people. And so it's like every week you're almost starting a mini business, right? You're planning something, you're putting a package together, you're doing all the creative stuff, you're marketing for it, you're trying to get people to show up on a Sunday morning. And so I felt like for 15 years I had the experience of constant change, having to really work through things. And so I really felt like, as goofy as it sounds, being in a church was like the perfect setup for me to be an entrepreneur, of having to experience, planning things, being creative, getting people into a space, giving them a great experience, dealing with feedback when people don't like certain things and how you deal with feedback. And then the other thing is churches are run by volunteers. And so, I was just one guy, but I had a team of about 40 people at one point that served under me that were unpaid volunteers. And so I would tell you it's a lot easier to manage people when they're getting paid, because you have a little bit of authority over them because of a paycheck. But I tell you what, learning how to lead people that are volunteers it's a huge leadership lesson for sure, of how to handle it, how to handle conflict, how to handle people, how to keep them engaged, keep them excited, keep them pointed towards a vision. So yeah, it's been great. It's been a good experience. And the other piece of it too, I'm very comfortable on stage and in front of people too, which is a huge part of being a business owner.
Is there anything that you would like to shout out for people to go check out? Like your website, social media, anything that you're working on individually?
Check out my businesses. If you're 21, you like to drink, come into 477. If you're
Lucky Charms is really good.
Lucky Charms is good.
Yeah.
If you're coming to Oak and Maple and grab some waffles and take a cocktail, and definitely come axe throwing. It's a lot of fun. But all of them have websites: 477distilling.com, oakandmaplewaffles.com, GreeleyHatchetHouse.com. Any of those, you can see what we're doing. We do have a Instagram and Facebook. I'm not sure we're on the TikToks yet, but we've got those things working. And any of our spots, check it out. Love to have you come. And if I'm there, introduce yourself, shake my hand. Love to talk to you.
And you're a great person to talk with. Matt, thank you so much for your time today. We really enjoyed this conversation. And for all of our listeners, stay tuned. Thank you for listening. And Matt, again, we appreciate your time today. And we'll see you next time on the Cash Flow Project.
Bye.